Hello, fellow survivors. There is a new survival game in town, and it's called Prologue Go Wayback. It is an ambitious survival game with some unique mechanics and procedurally generated maps, which allows for unique playstyles and experiences every single time. It's still just in demo form, soon in early access, and it's even then going to continue because it's a stepping stone for practically a 10-year plan, and it's spearheaded by PLAYERUNKNOWN and his production team. You might know him as the creator of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or PUBG, but here he is spearheading this very big survival game. And I had the privilege of sitting down with PlayerUnknown himself for a conversation about the game, its vision and its future. Let's get to it. Hello, fellow survivors. We are here with Brendan Greene, who is also better known as PlayerUnknown, and you might know him from creating PUBG, but we're here today to talk about his new game, Prologue. Hello, Brendan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So we're going to talk a little bit about your new game, Prologue Go Wayback, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about, well, all sorts of things, really. But I thought we could start with something a bit more basic. Why did you decide to leave PUBG, which is kind of like almost like a powerhouse at the time when you left, and decide to go a completely different direction and do this? Now, I know PUBG is technically, it has survival elements to it, so it's not like this is a completely new thing, but what made you want to do this instead of staying with PUBG?
Well, I wanted to, the reason I fell back in love with gaming was DayZ Mod and Arma 2. And that's when I kind of discovered emergent spaces or emergent open worlds rather than kind of boxes of missions that you find in other kind of open worlds that you find. I like the emergent space. And Battle Royale, the game mode, was kind of more me leveraging emergent space in kind of a session-based game mode. But my love was always big survival games.
Okay.
I always got sick of getting to the end of the map. So I wanted to make a world without the edge of a map, basically. And I asked Crafton if they would support me doing it by myself, because I wanted to see if I could do it in my own studio and build something myself. They thankfully supported me, and that's why we're here.
And what is your motivation for making this particular game? So for those of you that haven't seen it, so it's basically, it's a survival game. And the main selling point in its current state, at least, is you have these procedurally generated maps, which are gigantic. And it seems to be, we'll talk a bit more about this later, but to do the identity sort of to just survive really in it. So what is your motivation? What made you want to design this particular game and the way this is structured? Like, what was your vision there?
This was just a route to test research, really. I mean, way back when we tried to do 100 by 100 kilometers, at the time Atlas had just been released. I don't know if you played it, was Ark's piratey game. And they kind of sharded servers together by using the ocean as kind of the crossing point. So you didn't really see the border, so to speak. And I thought, well, isn't there a way we can use, and this was like 5-6 years ago now. So like, isn't there a way that we can use a low res map to inform what the high res map would look like? And a research director at the time said, well, yes, ML can do that because it can infer a pattern or infer high res detail from low res detail. So we worked for about 3 months on trying to figure out if we could generate like terrain using ML. It started slow, but in about 3 months, we figured out what terrain or topology was in latent space, or the hidden box of ML. And then we discovered we could do any scale terrain, because if we're doing it locally and generated on a user's machine, then any scale becomes possible. And then I thought, well, if we can do a world essentially every time you press play, which this technology enabled us, I thought, what was the easiest way to test this? And well, I thought, well, survival. Get from one side of the map to the other, have weather as the big bad, because it's it feels fair to me. It's not a pattern. Well, it's not a pattern you have to learn. Like with most AI in games, I don't like them because you can kind of learn the pattern, and that to me is a little bit boring. So I kind of like the unpredictability of RNG setups, which is why we have a new map every time. But again, the game mode was there mainly to test the terrain tech and to kind of mature the models to make the guided generation system kind of whole, and really get it to a stage where we can take all the learnings from using this in Unreal and sort of productize the research that we've done with the terrain. So as I said, like, I want to do a Earth scale world with millions of players, and the first step on this was, how do you do terrain at that scale? Because if you're doing an Earth scale world, then the amount of data you need, like you see it already with Microsoft Flight Sim and others, where they stream data to your PC. And I just think it's the wrong approach. I think if you want to do an Earth scale world, you have to do it generatively, locally on a player's PC. I was thinking about, like, how can we use this as a way to, become a 3D internet? Right? That's what's kind of become to me. But it's like no one's really building HTTP for 3D. Like, people are trying to, I guess. And then
Oh, I
there's
see.
the Web3 thing, which is, we could do a whole video on that, but I won't. But again, it's more that, like, I have 5 scientists in a room working on building the tech to enable this kind of social interaction on a grand scale, because that's what the internet is. And I just want to create the ability to create digital places that enable the same, enable stuff like Reddit's The Place. I think in the way we're doing it is empowering artists to make bigger worlds quicker, rather than looking at ways to use machines to replace them. We're not looking at to replace artists, but giving them more ability to do more. Like, we have a team of 10 artists, I think, that have created the world you see. So they get to define style and how it looks and texture, and even just the density of the biomes and all this kind of stuff. And then the ML model takes that data along with river schematic and mountain schematic and builds a world every time you press play. And even from one schematic, you can generate, I think, like hundreds, if not thousands, of worlds using, just one pattern. Essentially, you see this kind of guided generation system at work, and that's really now the focus of Prologue, is to kind of mature this system and make sure that, when we release it for user generation, essentially, that it allows you to do your own maps and share your own maps. So we want to be as open as possible, but it's still quite like prototypey. Like,
Yeah.
what you're playing and testing it wasn't there a year ago. Like, we didn't have cabin 6 months ago. Like, all the
Yeah.
systems you get in there are essentially minimal viable products. And we're using this playtesting and EA and the demo to really try to, work with the community to figure out what's best or how best to make worlds using this tech, because it's new to us. So it's new to everyone. So,
Mm.
I want to work with the community rather than us kind of directing where this goes. And, like, already there's a help menu going in,
Yeah.
because of, like, I just saw that was a general feedback from a lot of people playing and a lot of streamers and stuff, saying that it's not intuitive yet. There's no real information apart if you go to the key bindings. So we have this help screen coming in, hopefully.
Right.
That should give new players, because I don't want it to be easy and I don't want it to be handheldy, but I also don't want it to be, non-intuitive. And in battle, or in Prologue or Go Way Back, it's about getting across the map. So it's like, it's the map should be easily readable. You should be able to, plot your direction by looking at the environment. And yes, it will be hard to understand where you are, because, well, that's the game, right? The game is traversing these maps every time.
Yeah.
That's why survival is quite easy, so to speak, because that's not the focus of the game. The
No.
game is more about traversing these maps and going exploring, right?
First, let's go back to what you said about, like, the sort of like 3D internet. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, so this game is basically a technology test to see what's possible as a sort of baseline for a future game or system, which will be based on this. Is that right? Is that why it's called
Exactly.
Prologue as well?
Yeah, so Prologue, well, yeah, so Prologue, it's the first of 3 games.
Yeah.
So it'll be Prologue, Go Way Back, and then probably Prologue Game 2, and then maybe PlayerUnknown's Game 3.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't really want to sort of hammer people over the head with my branding.
No.
So for now, we're sort of still testing, and I look at the first 2 or even 3 games as kind of stepping stones to get to where we want to be. So yeah, like, the Melba is our engine in-house developed. And we're using a solution for Unreal through Shader World, where we're using our terrain models, um, that are also plugged into Melba. So we're using Prologue as a tech test. Also, just how do we build emergent systems, mechanics, get the UX feeling good, and then we'll carry all of that over to game 2, where then we try to go to bigger terrains, really where scale shouldn't be an issue. And then it'll be based on our own engine. We'll test marketplace, digital ownership, low-end multiplayer, because multiplayer we're leaving till game 3 because that's the biggest problem, along with maybe identity. So game 2 is more focused on building out maybe 50v50, 100v100, even 5v5. Nothing crazy, still quite possible within today's multiplayer protocols or frameworks. So, but it's more about just, so game 2 is about testing, can we interact with a bunch of NPCs? Like game 2, I think I've mentioned before, which I'd like to be kind of FPS, RTS type thing. But again, it's more that groups of 20v20 control thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of NPCs, and testing our network model. Right. And then moving into game 3, then we try to go to millions of players on a shared space. Like, this doesn't happen overnight, and I'm not going to solve everything at once. So in the meantime, I'm going to make some games I love. Like, I mean, I love exploration and survival anyway. So I've put 250, 300 hours into Prologue already, just wandering around maps. Yeah. I'm currently trying to light the beacon on a really cool mountain I found, like overlooking a valley, just to get some nice capture some nice video. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And that's my aim, is the next game I want to make, again, is a game that I can imagine playing and I want to play, because I grew up with Command and Conquer and Age of Empires, and I always kind of wanted to see that in kind of a 3D space. Right, and how could you do that? But again, this is all about like getting what we have in research into production and making sure that it's stable and solid before moving on to the next step or next game.
I have maybe a bit difficult question for you with regard to what you just said. So if Prologue in a way is like effectively a tech demo, which makes it also could still be a very good survival game. But in your mind, what is the appeal for players to come and play the game if they know that this is effectively a stepping stone that will eventually be obsolete in favor of a new game?
Yes, and yeah. So we have 2 products out there at the moment: Preface and Prologue. So Prologue is a game and a product we're making in Unreal, right? Which is also serving as a proving ground for the guided generation system. Yeah. Whereas Preface is more just a visualization of what's possible with our engine right now, and that's more the tech demo. I have a story, I have a lore, I have a comic book I want to write. So Prologue to me is still going to be like, I have planned for 3 DLCs, maybe more, where we keep adding to this emergent space based on community feedback. We have our own ideas for the story informing missions within the world, but they won't come until the DLCs, until we get into full release. I just want to create a stable emergent space that will have a storyline attached when we go to full release, but more as cutscenes at the start and the end, and maybe with some indication in the world, but really the story will come in DLC 1, 2, and 3, because I want us to focus on building a really cool emergent space first, where lots of things are possible, rather than trying to, because doing story, doing all this, it takes an incredible amount of time because it's more handcrafted.
Yes.
This way, first I want to build a really solid foundation of an emergent space, and then really open it up. Like, I mean, I'd want to see like alone mode, because I think that would be cool, right? Like where it starts off wet and just gets colder and colder and colder, and then it's just -20 or -30, and see how long you can survive, right? Like, I think that would be cool. Also, I think just for hiking, that you just open up a settings menu and you can control what weather it is in the map it picks for you. But even like with the construction system, right? Like the plank and hammer, like I want to build tree houses. Like, I want to see how long I can survive and what kind of stuff I can do in the trees. There's already one guy who, I think you may have seen it, that bugged. There's a bug where you can climb up on top of planks, and he got into the clouds, right? Like, I mean, I love this. Like, this is, I said, I want this bug to remain in, because it allows you to platform yourself, right? Instead of us having to build this massive platform, you can just do it yourself and get into the clouds, because you're standing on something that's like tiny, right? And he fell off eventually and died, but got to a really good height. But that's why I love emergent space, because it's your adventure. right? It's not me directing you where to go. It's not holding your hand. It's just giving you a world and letting you go nuts. And that's why I fell back in love with games through DayZ. So this is why I'm so passionate about it, because I think like more people need to discover that. It's why Battle Royale was so successful, I believe, is because I'm not telling you how to play the game.
No.
There's a simple set of rules. It's new every time, and go have fun, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the same with this, where it's trying to bring similar mechanics or similar vision into a single player space, where it's a challenging, fun game every time because you don't know what to expect.
I have some reflection on sort of the identity here, because if we were to look at the game as it is now, without any of the context that you have said, then when you play the demo, it's similar to a lot of other sort of early access survival games.
Sure.
Which is kind of like a testing thing. But there is an identity in this game, or at least one that's on its way, that is appealing to me. So to explain what I mean, the gist of it is, like, after having played survival games for a while now, and also I researched behavior on it, there are kind of three different types of survival games. It's kind of hard to define what a survival game is, because it depends what elements we're talking about. But there's kind of three different things. One is emphasis on survival, one is emphasis on exploration, and one is kind of like large-scale multiplayer. And
yes,
the survival-based game, where the survival is the focus, is games like, say, The Long Dark, where the main opponent is the environment, and it's minus 100 degrees when you go outside, and you die in 2 minutes unless you know what you're doing. While an exploration-based game is where the survival mechanics are secondary, and a good example of that is Subnautica. So Subnautica is technically a survival game. You have oxygen, obviously. You have predators. You have hunger and thirst. But hunger and thirst in that game are really secondary. It's really not hard to maintain them at all, because the emphasis is on exploring the biomes. And to me, Prologue is kind of more in the Subnautica style, because
No, I mean, not to cut you off. Like, internally we're considering minimum, or like stopping death from hunger and thirst, right? That it may just cause you to not be able to regulate your body temperature better, right? That you'll just lose heat quicker when you're super hungry or super thirsty, and it'll be as simple as that. So it's not so much, as you said, on the survival. It's more about just exploration and having one thing to manage, which is keeping yourself warm. Right, which is a more manageable. It's why we added cliffs in, and why I'm so happy to see them in, because right now it's quite hard to read the map to know if you want to go up a slope or not. Adding in the cliffs kind of makes it easier for the player to look at the environment and go, okay, I can't go there, I can go here. There will always be a path to the weather station. Like, we can make sure we can verify that with maths, right? But like, it should be easy for the player to read the world and understand, okay, this is what I need to do. And it isn't there yet. And it still will be a little bit of a mystery, but I don't want that to be a hard thing. Exploration, as you said, I think, is the point of this. And it's why we want to kind of add free roam modes and these other modes that just take advantage of these spaces we create, rather than, trying to define it as one play style.
In its current state, of course, it depends on where the game is going, but I feel like it is exactly as you say. The survival mechanics are sort of secondary in the sense that obviously you have temperature, and in Subnautica you have oxygen, but the other ones are hunger and water. Even though you can't boil water currently, although I'm sure you can later, it's very easy to maintain. You just go around.
They said MVPs of most of the systems. They really are. Like, and this is, again, like, not sorry, and I'll let you continue then. Sorry, but like, all during early access, like, we don't want to add too many more features.
No,
we will like want to drill down on the systems we have. Like, as I said, the attached plank system, I'd love to see into more of a construction system, but that takes time to build out.
Yeah.
Same with just basic interaction, being able to put the compass onto the map and then use some proper orienteering knowledge to get yourself bearing. These kind of things, but that requires a team of 2 animators working on it for several months to get this kind of stuff in and checked and all this. So right now my focus is on taking what we have and trying to make it as stable as possible. So when I ask people to pay for money in it, or for it in early access, that it is a stable place that you can explore. And the systems will gain depth and more realism or more usability over time. But this is why we have the community Discord, right? Because we have thousands of people just testing our play tests. We have some people testing our nightly builds, and it's all about trying to make sure it's as stable and as like intuitive as possible when we release, and adding identity or adding too much lore, adding too much story at this stage. It diverts attention away from the important stuff, which is the mechanics, the interactivity of the world, and how the world's generated. And once we have that kind of locked in and solid, then we can add more of the bells and whistles onto the game and make it more like a game. But before that, I really want to get the basics super good. The way that we can create these worlds in essentially a few minutes on your PC, like I'm running a 4080, a laptop GPU, and I get into Prologue in about 30-40 seconds or something as it loads up. So it's like, it's a super quick way of creating worlds, and that really excites me. And I can't wait to see what community and other devs do with it if we get to that stage at some stage.
There is a subliminal identity in the game, which is that there is a certain appeal to just surviving in the game on its own. I have a video which is basically called The Meaning of Life in Survival Games, where some games like The Long Dark don't have a purpose in it. So people will say, well, what's the point? What do I do? Well, I reached 2,000 days survival. Why? Well, the joy is being in the world in itself. So in Prologue, even if you don't necessarily, you do have a goal like the weather station, but you can ignore that. Then you can just roam around and be alive in the world. And that makes it your own and makes it your home. And also you feel more invested in it. And there is a certain sort of appeal and relaxation to just being in the world and conquering it, in the sense that this is my home, I can survive in it, and I thrive in it as well. And it almost becomes a disconnect from reality as well.
No, exactly. So, yes. And I'm glad you touched on that, because that's something I've thought about a lot. The ultimate goal here is not about creating a game world. It's about creating a digital space, a fifth place that you can go to, because so many folks live in small boxes with noise all day that having this disconnect, having this space where you can go to and listen to birdsong and sit by the river or sit by a fire and read a book and not have the reality you live in be a burden on your senses. I think there's something to that. I think I'm lucky to be able to experience silence when I want it. And there's a lot of people that don't have that. And I think, there's papers coming out showing how, artificial noise is bad for mental health and stuff like this. So I think this kind of space where you can go and escape to might have some mental health benefits. Maybe not, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. But again, I've thought about that it's not about providing a game or a path to follow. It's about giving you a space where you can do whatever the hell you want, because that's why I came back to games through DayZ, because that was it. It was like, here, go do whatever the hell you want within the bounds of the world. And this will be hopefully the same with Prologue, or we'll go way back, because it's just an emergent space and there's no time limit.
What were you also thinking in terms of that's right. What were you also thinking in terms of mechanics? So, for example, in the current state, you don't have a crafting menu, which is kind of refreshing. But is that something you intend to make, because one thing that's really unique about this game, which is amazing, is that when you make a fire, you have to actually build the fire. Which I don't think I've ever seen a game do before. And at least there's some funny interactions when the fire rolls down a hill and that sort of thing. Is the same sort of principle going to apply to other things? Like, for example, if I wanted to make planks to fix the cabin, like in my play, the roof fell off the cabin, and my first thought was, I have no idea how to fix that. But are you thinking of expanding it in sort of similar ways?
No, exactly. So, I'd rather it to be kind of diegetic in the world than having a crafting menu. Simple stuff like dragging a cassette onto a tape recorder or a tape player should make it work, right? It should be intuitive like that. I don't want it to be super, I don't want to go too deep into crafting, but it should be more a physical view. At least that's our view on it, I think. So again, this will be based on community feedback, but I don't see us going full down the crafting route menu. It's more, let's get a handle on the physics interactions, and then make placement of fires more fun. But about rolling down the hill, one of the guys, Dan, on our Discord, he saw this, so he took a metal grate from one of the houses, like a toast rack or something like this, or just a oven rack, and used that on top of the terrain, and that stopped the materials rolling down the terrain because they got stuck to the thing. So it was this kind of emergent like behavior, which is why I love creating these spaces, because you never know what's going to happen.
What stands out about this game is there's a few things. So like I said, if you look at it purely from as if it was a early access survival game, then it's reminiscent of many other games like this, but there's a few things that stands out. The main one is that it's procedurally generated, which is an amazing achievement, which is often requested by people who play survival games, but it's usually not in place. But the other one is that what is very strong with this game is the dev team around it. So when I have played games like this before, there's usually a smaller team, and you give direct feedback and they start changing it, and so on and so forth. Here, you have a very organized community of devs and mods who have a very well-organized Discord with playtesting, with feedback, and also community interaction, like your dev team will interact with the community and you interact with the community and so on. Or you're standing somewhere that's not the case. They sort of do their own thing, but you are very involved. And what that means is that when you have a game like this, players feel very included and heard. So there's an experience beyond the game itself. And that's something I have to really commend your team for. I don't think I've ever been involved in a playtest that has been this inclusive and this friendly from the developers team. Usually there's much more gap between the developers and the playtesters. Here it's almost like the players is like team 2 in your dev team almost. And that's something I have to really commend you for.
In my head it is.
Yeah.
Like, I am a player. I'm not a game dev. Like, I joined the industry 7-8 years ago now, or like 8 years ago. Seriously, kind of. I'm not a veteran game executive. It's been quite a steep learning curve because most of the time was spent like on the road. But I believe in community first development, like in my heart, because that's where I came from.
Yeah.
Like, I always wanted to find the next PLAYERUNKNOWN. So like I am so proud of what the team have done and achieved over the last year. Like, it's the way the Discord works, the way the keys are handed out, the way that some of the team, because it's hard to kind of ask your team to start communicating with the community because it's often a rocky road. But they really took it well, and there's still, some of them are still a little bit shy, but we've really got some great interaction and a good set of mods. And so like I really this, all your praise goes to the team. I have this crazy vision, but they really operationalize it and make it possible. It's like, for me, it's about making games I love to make. And yes, I'm very lucky to have a global brand, and I fought hard to keep it as authentic and community focused as I can. But now with Prologue and the dev team, I'm really lucky to have a team that support this vision as well, and have really done a great job at executing it. Like, as I said, I couldn't be prouder and happier with how playtests are running, how we're interacting, how we're giving, how the feedback loop is happening with the team. Super happy with the team.
Yeah, and do you have a tentative idea of when you plan to put the whole thing in early access and be away from the demo, or is that too early to say?
Late summer.
Oh, really?
That's all I'm saying right now.
Okay.
We say it's summer 20. This summer, like, is going into early access.
Oh, okay.
So we have a little bit of time left. That's why we're running these playtests. It's why we have the demo out live, so it's public, because we want to lock down what we put into early access now and make sure that what we ask people to spend money on the game, that it at least is like intuitive and playable. And I think we don't have far to go there. I mean, as I said, with the help screen, with some other little tweaks to the user experience, I think it could be a fun experience to help us test with, right? Like, at least it should be stable enough that you're having a good time, rather than, it's not going to be feature complete yet, of course, but it's a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about something similar, which is what your thoughts are on the difficulty level and that sort of thing, because there were some articles that said, we're going to make the hardest survival game possible, and we talked a bit about that. and some.
I saw those articles and I thought, oh no, I shouldn't be talking now. You can talk.
Yeah,
Keep going.
because some games, like for example, The Long Dark, they don't have any tutorial at all. There's one or two informations you get, but for the most part, you have to learn everything yourself, which is why there's a learning curve of several years, and it makes it very hard to master. And then the other games would just tell you straight up. And so I was wondering how you were thinking in terms of how would you like the game to be? Do you want it to be intuitive with little help, or do you want to have this help screen include everything? And also, do you want different difficulties? Can you say anything about that? Like, how do you envision people approaching it like that?
It's a debate that I'm having constantly now, because I do, like, I saw this, I took this mantle of I'm building the hardest survival game ever. I'm like, okay, am I? Okay, that's great. But I think the experience I have for the main game mode, the story based, the lore based one, will be quite hard because there is a story there. And I think right now, because we don't have, there's an intro scene where it says Lucy get to the weather tower. That's part of a cutscene that is played at the start of the game. And that will be a kind of a tutorial. So someone will be showing you how to do things within the world.
Right.
And then at the end, we have another cutscene which opens the door to the lore a bit further. But so yeah, right now it's I do want to make a hard survival game, but I want to give you the option of playing it your way. So if you want to have it just as a hiking simulator where the weather isn't really or you don't have to worry about your health or anything like that, uh, that could be an option, right? I'm not ruling it out, but the main game mode I think will be. I want it to be hard, but I also want it to be more, as you said, focused on exploration and getting across the map than worrying about finding food and keeping hydrated, right? So more focus on exploration rather than survival, because ultimately that's what, when we're doing Earth scale worlds, that's what I envisioned anyway, which was it's a world focused on exploration and building communities rather than on fighting and like small scale interactions. That it's about the wonder of these worlds rather than just having a mission to do. Of course, we'll bring that in later in the DLC, but right now, as I said, making this kind of solid emergent space is the top priority.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that it sort of creates an identity of its own, but also if you insert something like difficulties, you can have things like creative mode or easy mode where everything's turned down, and you can insert the hardcore mode where everything is terrible, there's storms all the time, but that's
I said, like, there should be an alone mode, right?
Yeah.
So like it just starts off wet and hazy and maybe dry occasionally, and you get a summer's day, but it's just getting colder and colder. And by the end, it's just minus 30 all the time. And it's blizzard and no blizzard and blizzard and no blizzard. And that's all you get. And like there's 400 cabins on the map, right? So there should be a way for you to be able to survive, but it's just making sure you're well prepared. And I think, that's fun, right? I mean, who doesn't want to see that in an event, right? Like
that's right.
16 streamers sit down together and see who lasts the longest. Even we had some playtesters. We have t-shirts internally that like I reached the weather tower and all I got was his lousy t-shirt because it was so hard at the start to get to the weather tower. I love playing the game because it gives me this sense of exploration, right? Of like I want to, and there's so many maps we can do because it's seed based. I think it's 2.6 billion possibilities. And then because of the schematics we give it, we can have like almost infinite variety. But I'm very careful to say that because it could be the 10,000 bowls of oatmeal problem. But hopefully the guided generation solution gets us around that by allowing you and us to give like guidance to what kind of map we want, right? Rather than just letting it be fully procedural or fully random every time.
Yeah. Have you played The Long Dark? Have you tried that game?
No, not yet. I've been meaning to.
Yeah.
I tried Don't Starve.
Yeah, no,
a little bit, but I don't play a lot of games. Well, number one, I don't have time because I've got a few things on in my life. I also I play occasionally Battlefield, but now I've just been playing the hell out of Prologue.
Yeah.
I mean, so maybe I should try the Long Dark.
I would.
yeah.
I would recommend trying it, not because it's similar. The identity and the style, everything is very different. But there are some mechanics that are the same. For example, in the Long Dark, the world does get colder over time. There's very little hand holding, and the main opponent is the weather. So if you go out and it's a blizzard and you don't know what you're doing, you're dead in 10 minutes, sort of thing. But everything is conquerable. So for people who play survival games already, their approach to Prologue will be a bit different, because they probably will want to try and survive as much as possible. And if you then create a hard mode, whatever that is, where it's constant storms or whatever, that will attract a certain type of survival player.
I think I want to make this hard, but not impossible.
No.
But again, because of the way the maps are generated, there'll be sometimes you're going to die.
Yeah, that's right.
And my designers were asking me, like, and I'm like, but that's okay, because that's life, right? Like, sometimes it just doesn't work out,
yeah.
and you just accept it and go, well, shit, okay, got to start again. And this is kind of this game where there's one particular map that I like, that it was the one that I shared on the demo, the seed that I shared, that I just remember like trying the first 5 times and just misestimating where the cabin was, or maybe where the next cabin was, because to get off where the starter cabin was a long hike, and I didn't find a cabin in the meantime. So, and then a blizzard rolled in a few times, so I just died. So it's just, but at least the world's pretty, and
yeah, it's pretty, and the sound design also is great. The sound design is very good, especially when there's a storm. It really sounds like someone's stalking you, but they're not.
I was stuck in this rock formation, which is more like temporary shelters, because it shields you from the wind. There's overhangs that give you a bit of shelter from the rain. Now, snow and rain will put out your fire, unfortunately. It'll make shit wet, and if you light stuff that's wet, it'll smoke first before going into fire. It's really nice for testing. But yeah, I mean, I would like it to be hard, but sometimes impossible, but not unintuitive.
No.
Like, it should be, like, you should learn something from it, right? Like, placing a fire, learning that like wet paper doesn't light very well. These kind of things, like someone said initially when we first thought, like, how do I read a map? And someone just posted a link to Google.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, thank you. Like, I don't like to be handheld. I still think it should be a good and fun game mode, and something I enjoy playing. I don't want it to be too hard. There are, like, as I said, like, I love DayZ, but DayZ standalone is very hard when it comes to, if you don't find food in the first kilometer, you're going to have a bad time. And that to me is like, I want you to be able to explore the world. And with us, because there's so many worlds created and will be so many worlds created, to me, that's where I want the fun to be. That it should be hard to get across the map. Of course, it should take time, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, if not longer. And there should be a commitment there, but it shouldn't be that hard you want to just throw your computer through the window, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
It should be, it's again, it's based on your decisions, it's your adventure, and that adventure shouldn't be impossible, right?
No.
Like, as I said, yes, sometimes the map will make it impossible, or you'll just be unlucky, but it shouldn't feel like I'm like. But again, you said something that we have internally, which is the map doesn't care about you, or the world doesn't care about you. It doesn't care if you're there, right? Like, there's nothing happening in the world that is based on the player. The weather is random. Like, before, we had this idea that it just gets colder as you get closer to the weather tower, but it was kind of thrown out in favor of, well, I want some sunny days when you reach the weather tower. Like, I want some variation in the climate of when you reach the weather tower, so you get to see these varied vistas as kind of a reward at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that the best appeal for this sort of game is to sort of have the target audience be newer players. They may or may not be new to survival games, but they're new players. And then over time, you can, if you want, implement features that are aimed at veteran players. Some developers, like, for example, the Long Dark, they do that. Most of the updates they do is aimed at people who play sort of, let's just say, lower difficulties and enjoy the game for what it is. And every now and then they implement something like, this is for you hardcore people, let's see. And I think that's because the majority of people, I think, who will hop into this game want to try it. They want to have a little bit of help. They want to just enjoy it. And I think just to summarize this a little bit is that the best way I can describe Prologue is that playing it is an experience, because some survival games are not about the experience. They are about hierarchical threshold. Build this to then build that to then build this. But here, that's not the case. This is an immersion experience, which not many survival games have. And I think that's an appeal that's only going to get better. So this is a game that I'm really curious to see. I want to see how it goes. I'm going to keep playing it. And also, I really appreciated you take the time to speak to me. That was a very pleasant surprise and an honor for me, of course. Before we wrap it up,
the honor's all mine, really. Like, I mean, I don't see myself as that kind of person. Like, there's another streamer that I think he had like 10 viewers, but he was one of the first streamers live on Twitch with my game. So I just went in and spent time, and he's he's a PUBG player. So I was just in chatting with him. But it's great because I went in a few of these smaller streamers. I was just chatting to them about the game, right? Just telling them, look, this is what the plans are. And why wouldn't I do that, right? I mean, I love what I'm doing. I love this game, and I want to let people know about it. And it takes a little bit of my time to go and talk to the community. Yeah, to me, it's obvious, right? Like, I should be doing it. It's something that's just part of the job, right? Like, I'm not a developer. I'm not a great artist. I love audio and that kind of stuff.
But before we wrap up, I was just open question. There's a lot more we could have talked about, but we could maybe do a follow-up one. Because this whole thing about vision and identity and the long-term process, see, all of this is context around the game, which is great. And it changes your immersion in the game as well. But in terms of just wrapping up, I thought I'd just ask openly, is there anything else you would like to say or just talk about right at the end?
I would just say, come join our Discord. Come join the conversation. I mean, for me, that's the most important thing, is that we're building the game with the community rather than for them. I mean, I look at this guided generation tech, and I see possibilities, and I see like doors, so many possibilities and doors in front of me that it excites me greatly, right? And but I still understand that this way of creating worlds, while not brand new, the way we're doing it is slightly more is slightly different to most others. And I'd love feedback on that, right? And how we create, because everything we learn in game one will take on to game two. And that is like user experience and all this stuff. So the more data, as you said, scientists have, the better. So the more data and feedback we have on what we're building will help us make a better game. And I really believe community first development is the way you make great games. Look at the last 15 years, 20 years, biggest games like DayZ, PUBG, or Battle Royale in general, Dota, CSGO, they all came from Minecraft. It all came from like very small teams or even just single guys burning a passion project, right? Trying to do something that they wanted to play themselves rather than looking to monetize an idea, right? Or a trend or something that's hot or whatever. And I think that I'm lucky to be still in that position where I can still focus on doing what I love, which is making these kind of immersive experiences. Like, as I said, making digital places rather than making games. And Prologue is kind of the first step on that. While there is a game mode there is something for you to do in the world. It's not really about that. It's about exploration of these created spaces, if that's your thing.
All right, friend. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been wonderful talking to you. And for anyone watching, check out Prologue on Steam or Epic, or just be aware of the early access coming soon, and join the Discord because they got a really good team, really nice people. So it's going to be fun to track this game as it develops, and the game 2 and 3 when they happen as well. So yeah, thank you very much, Brendan.
Thanks so much. It's been a really good conversation.